Hello and welcome this morning to the Wise Why, where I am joined by Mark Franklin. And Mark's journey is really, really interesting. And for anybody who has to face their fears, this is the man and this is the episode to listen to. But as usual, the show is not about me, it is about my guest. So, as everyone's bored of hearing my voice, Mark, straight over to you. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Kirsty. It's lovely to be here. I am Mark. I am husband to the amazing Hannah, father to two brave and brilliant grown-up daughters, and a puppy who might introduce herself at some point because she's a bit crazy. Musician, drummer, but my main thing is that I am the four fears guy. So I'm a speaker, mindset expert, business strategist. I work with business owners and their teams to help them explore and embrace what I call the four fears of business ownership, those most common hesitations or interruptions that could be preventing them from achieving the success that they deserve. Essentially, it's kind of helping them remember how incredibly good they are at what they do.
Cool. Could you explain a little bit more about, because we all get fears. I mean, I've written about this in my blogs. I've talked about how I crocheted a jumper. Interesting enough, I'm crocheting a new one right now, so maybe there's a fear going on. But I crochet when I'm trying to avoid, and I find that fear makes me avoid things. So I wonder if you could explain a little bit more about the four fears and how you help people.
Sure, the avoidance thing is actually very interesting. And yeah, that plays very much into how the fears kind of overlap. So very quickly, if I can, the four fears, let's go through them. First fear is that fear of not being ready, which many people will immediately recognize as sort of perfectionism. This idea of I've got, this wonderful project service thing that I want to give out to the world. I'm really excited about it, but I can't do it just yet because it's not perfect, because, I've got to spend a bit more time on the typeface and change the color of the website and, blah, 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 blah. It's procrastination to some extent. It's delay tactics. When you dig a little bit deeper, what you're actually saying when you're talking about it's not ready and I'm not ready is the second fear, which is the it's not good enough, I'm not good enough. The imposter syndrome, the kind of comparisonitis looking sideways. There's other people who do this, they're so much better than me. I don't think, I'm good enough. I haven't got the skills yet, going back to the I'm not ready. And so I'm going to resist the bravery required to go and do that thing. Third fear, which is the one that kind of makes me smile a little bit, is that I don't have enough time. And the reason that one makes me smile is because in a very dismissive way, you can say it's never about time. It's never about time. You could slip into that sort of slightly sort of toxic positivity of time management. Beyonce's got 24 hours in the day, just like you. She gets to do all these amazing things. Why can't you? That's unhelpful. The thing with when you say, I don't have enough time, and often that's the first thing that people say. If I was to sort of, ask somebody, which of these four fears resonate with you? I don't have enough time is the one that people typically put their hands up first, because it invites less challenge. It invites less vulnerability. And it's easy to say, I don't have enough time. That feels like a practical kind of issue. You're not going to start challenging me on that. But when you actually do dig into that, okay, what is it you are doing with your time? What is it you should be doing with your time? Most people know the answers to that. They know there are things that are probably more important or have more value that they're putting off. Why are you kind of, like you were saying, avoiding? That's when you dig back into it's because I have that fear of not being good enough. I don't think it's ready yet. And so they all start sort of playing into each other. And that's where the conversation gets interesting. The fourth fear, which is the one that hangs over them all, is that fear of failure. That what if I get it wrong? What will people think of me? And just reflecting on all four once again, the I'm not ready, it's not ready. The I'm not good enough is essentially somebody saying, if I do this thing now, knowing that it's not as good as I would like it to be, knowing that I'm not as good as I would like to be, knowing that I haven't spent enough time on it as perhaps I think I should, it's bound to fail. And how will that make me look? And those are, in essence, so the four most sort of common hesitations that have come up time and time again with the sort of people I work with.
It's fascinating. And of course, it's really interesting listening to you talk about it, because as someone who's got dyslexia, I can't have perfection. And I remember it almost crippling me when I was a teenager. Then I found out I was dyslexic, and that freeing of finding out when I was 37 that I'm dyslexic, therefore perfection is something that I'm never going to get, really freed up my fear. It completely changed the way that I do things. So I know that my stuff is always done and not perfect. The amount of people who email me and go, "Are you aware there's a typo in this?" And I'm like, "Thanks, it can stay."
Yeah.
So yeah, so with the fears and everything, where did it come from? Where did you come along to? Because you weren't always this keynote speaker talk about how to face your fears and the let me get this correct because I don't want to get it wrong. The 4 fears. You know, you weren't just here. This didn't just suddenly happen.
No.
And the people always think this, that you suddenly materialize as this guru and you've suddenly got there. It's overnight success, but it's not like that, is it?
No, not at all. No, and this is to end up where I am now, 20 plus years ago, is completely off my radar as to where I thought I would be. So my background's graphic design, visual communication design. That's what I studied at uni. It's still a huge passion of mine. As a designer, I always felt that my role was to take a client's brief and turn it into something that would evoke and provoke, and that kind of marketing 101 of capture the imagination, capture the attention, capture the heart of the audience so that they then take action. And I loved that. And as I mentioned at the start, I'm a musician. I like to perform on stage. I love the whole art of storytelling and kind of creating those emotions that connect to people. 2000, I think it was, end of 2000, I started work at a children's book publisher in one of their sales divisions as the designer. My role was to kind of create all these marketing resources, incentives, what I kind of called these hand grenades of excitement that would stir the sales team into action. I think it's really important when you're working in marketing that you get to know your audience, understand their kind of, what excites them, what delights them, again, what's going to capture their attention, imagination and heart. And I learned quite quickly, because they were a very excitable, vocal bunch, that for all those hand grenades that you threw in and all those kind of temporary sort of moments of distraction, those things didn't necessarily stir them into action. The thing that actually mattered most to them was their own story. What is it they really wanted from their business, from their journey? And why was that so important to them that they were going to do something about it? And in those conversations, what kept coming back was, from the outside looking in, I could see how amazing they were, how successful they were, but they weren't seeing it, or at least they weren't confident enough to sort of stand up and celebrate it. And when you sort of asked them, and it was kind of like one of those clickbait moments, it's kind of, what they told me truly shocked me. What do you say to them? What's working well? What are you excited about? What are you doing next with your business, and so on and so forth. They come back saying, "Oh, I'm not sure because I kind of feel like I've got hit by luck. I'm not actually that good at what I do. I don't think other people say that I'm doing pretty well, but I don't see it myself." And those 4 fears that we've just been through just kept coming up time and time again. And in my role, as I kind of grew from designer into marketing director, and ultimately the director of that sales division, one of the biggest and I think most successful decisions I've ever made was to dial down the focus on marketing and dial up the focus on personal development. Let's dig in to what these people really need to find the confidence and bravery and clarity in order to help them connect more to that what's the best that can happen rather than what's the worst that can happen. And it did work, in terms of all the numbers and the boring corporate stuff. The division grew. We had phenomenal success. But for me personally, what I really, really enjoyed, and this is still the thing that drives me now, is seeing that kind of transformation from someone who clearly is very good, capable, and actually passionate about what they do, to the point where they see that too. That's the journey, essentially, Kirsty, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And it's really interesting because I wonder how much, and you'll have more of an insight on this than I do, but I've read a book, I think it was I'll probably get this wrong, Gay Hendricks book, The Big Leap, I think it is. I always get it
Okay.
wrong. Anyway, I always call it the wrong title. And it talks about limitations and families, and over the last 4 years, and I was talking about this recently about the crab situation. We went crabbing. You get one crab, the crab can go in the bucket, but it can get out. You get two crabs, and the crabs start pulling each other down. And I'm wondering how much of that limitation sometimes comes from an outside influence, our childhood, for instance, or our friends and our family, and how if you've seen any kind of that going on.
That definitely plays a part. Absolutely. Again, it's. I mean, I'm not sort of neuroscientist and sort of professional psychologist, so I'm talking from experience rather than sort of fact that I've studied over many years. But definitely the environment that you find yourself in has a huge impact on your self-belief and confidence, and the directions that you choose to follow. And again, thinking about some of the more remarkable stories that I've witnessed over the years, digging into that bravery has allowed some people, whose stories I won't share because they're quite personal, but to completely relocate to a different environment that serves them better. So it could be, a toxic relationship. It could be surrounding themselves with people who are more aligned with what they want to achieve. It can go very deep very quickly, but equally, it can just be, because emotions are contagious. This is a fantastic saying. So it could just be that you yourself find yourself in a better place, and the difference that makes on your environment, on your family, on the people that you care about and interact with most, that in itself has that wonderful sort of effect too.
I love that, and it's really interesting because I've just been working with Philippa Smithhurst, who's bringing out a new book called 20 Ways to Break Free from Trauma, and it's a fabulous book. And she just said that in one of the chapters, trauma is contagious, and it was really interesting what you just said there about energy is contagious. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your own bravery, because you don't just suddenly, and I've done it myself, you don't just suddenly go, I've had enough one day, and you hand in your resignation. There is a reason, and it takes a bit of time to pull on your bravery armor and take a decision and make that aha moment and that leap. So I wonder if you could talk about your own bravery for a minute.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the first things I always hold my hand up to in terms of the 4 fears is the one that hits me most is the I'm not good enough. So I know I have that kind of sort of imposter syndrome still kind of ticking away in the background. I consider myself sort of very privileged in terms of sort of my journey. This time with a children's book publisher, I was fortunate to sort of be promoted through the business because I was the sort of person who would put their hand up. Someone would say, you fancy having a go at this? And I'd be like, yep, I'll have a go. Be fine. I'll work it out later. Even if I don't have the skills now, it'll be good. I had that kind of confidence. I was really stirred by the successes that we were seeing in this kind of sales force. That for me was sort of my real driver. When I was thinking, well, when I took over the division, I wanted to sort of think about what is our vision, what is our mission, what do we stand for? And I love this concept of providing everyone with an opportunity to write a better story for their family. That was kind of our hook. That's what we did. So whoever you were, wherever you were in the business, our role was to help you write that better story. And that came about because I myself felt that the opportunities that were coming my way and the things that kind of it meant for my family as I was kind of working, we were writing a better story for our family. It was wonderful. It was fantastic. Good for us. I had a great job. We were earning the big money. We were having holidays and blah 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 blah. And then essentially I broke, if I'm honest. It got to the point the business was growing really nicely. We had everything kind of having this fantastic strategy in terms of how we're going to grow the team, cope with this kind of expansion, etc., etc. Pandemic hit, Brexit hit. We were trading internationally. And suddenly I found myself sort of firefighting. And all the things that I really loved about those relationships and those stories, that wasn't my day-to-day anymore. I was just putting out fires. And what I kind of realized through, therapy, which, I I had to step away for sort of several months. I had to kind of really kind of look at myself, and I went to a very dark place. What I was realizing was I was trying to write this, or help all these people write a better story from their families. I was really unhappy. I mean, like in a really, really bad place. And whilst I was still passionate about that vision, the place I found myself in within that role was, I don't want to sort of over exaggerate, but it was killing me.
And thank you.
Um,
And not interrupting you there, because I'm well aware
yeah,
that touching on these places can bring back those memories, and I've been there. So you're in a safe space, because I have been in some dark places in my time, and like you, I reached out and got help and support that was required. So on that note, I just want to go thank you for sharing that, and well done. And look at where you are now. Look at how you're inspiring people.
thank you. Yeah, I think the thing that kind of I've noticed now, I mean, we're talking, so this was only 2 years ago when this all kind of really got dark, and through that kind of transition and realizing that actually I'd let go of my own happiness. And the reason that I sort of went out on my own, so I've only been doing this by myself for about 18 months. This was an opportunity to do all the things that I really loved on my terms, in a way that allowed me to write that better story for my family, whilst putting myself in that family. This wasn't just about the people around me. This was something that I could do in a way that I really enjoyed, that I was good at, that I'd make a bit of money from, but I would feel genuinely fulfilled from. I'd be happy. And people keep saying to me now, how's it going? How's the new business and so on? And my sort of immediate answer is, I'm so bloody happy. I wasn't expecting that to be like the big takeaway in my first 18 months of trading, but it is. It's the kind of, I still get to do wonderful things with wonderful people, but Friday afternoon when I shut down my laptop, I'm like, so much more content.
I love it. I do say to myself that my boss can be a bit of a bitch sometimes, because she won't let me have a day off. And I'm standing here today going, I'm going to go watch my daughter play hockey this afternoon. I am so excited that I can close my laptop down and I can go. It means that your episode won't be on Spotify until tomorrow. But that's the way things roll. I've got that freedom, but that dark place changed my life. I had to really evaluate. I'm lucky, a bit, it sounds like you are as well. I have an amazing husband. I have the most supportive man in the world. And his one thing for me is that he wants me to be happy. He knows my backstory. He knows where I've come from. I'm like, God, did you take on some suitcases when you chose to fall in love with me? Whoa, you didn't just get one suitcase. You got 25 of them. And it sounds like your wife is really quite inspirational.
Yeah, I can get very emotional very quickly talking about Han, but she's we're unpacking lots of suitcases together, I think. But yeah, she's absolutely remarkable. By totally my best friend, and yeah, she's been on this journey with me. But all she's ever all we ever wanted for each other really is that kind of happiness. And I like to think that we're in a much better place. 23 years of a very happy marriage. That's never been in doubt, but now we're sort of getting to enjoy each other even more. And again, those two crazy kids that we've got as well. Well, 3 if you include the dog.
I stopped at 1. That was enough for me. We've had a couple of comments, so I'm going to fling over to there. Zoe Morales joined to say, goodness, sounds like you're describing me and how fear has affected my business journey. Zoe, we were talking about this last night. So, energy is contagious from Hayley Joseph. I love that. It's just as easy to spread the good stuff. Let's live in the happy lane of life. Yes, please. Great podcast. Nice to meet you, Mark. Thanks for sharing your journey and the ebb and flow of life and all that we navigate. And that's the thing, isn't it? People can, particularly with socials, particularly with the social channels, people really think everything is pretty and rosy. But actually what's going on behind the scenes, and I was having this conversation with a client about should you share the down stuff, the rough stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you should, but you should filter. You should put boundaries in place. And we talked about that before we came live, about my
Mm.
whole thing about boundaries, because it's very easy to overshare. And I don't know if you've seen the same thing where the fear has gripped you, and it's happened to me. So this is why I'm talking about it. 20 years ago, I was running around Glasgow desperately trying to find somebody to help me because I wasn't owning the situation I was in. I wondered if you've ever seen that in anyone else.
Yes, I have. I mean, again, I won't sort of share sort
I
of
don't. No,
specific
please don't.
individual stories, but certainly, from a sort of stepping back and watching, again, there's examples where you can kind of, this sounds quite harsh, but someone won't necessarily take that ownership of the situation they're in because those fears are so intense. And with the best will in the world, whilst my role is to kind of, again, explore and embrace some of those fears, there are certain instances where this is beyond conversation that I can get into. This is much more of a serious situation where people really need much more dedicated support. I think the fears themselves, as we sort of touched on earlier, based on the kind of the environment, the circumstance, and so on and so forth, where you find yourself. It is important, and I think, again, this comes back to one of the elements that I love about what I do. It's important to kind of have that aha moment of, okay, I see these fears now. I see them, I recognize them. Then the magic really happens in terms of what am I going to do about them? And again, that requires a huge amount of clarity and bravery. One of the things that I hope I do very well is that very sort of gentle journey towards that clarity and bravery. Because, we're talking about very deep, personal, vulnerable conversations. And helping somebody recognize the fears and move them to a point where they start to feel that kind of confidence and sort of slightly shoulders back a little bit taller. Okay, this is something I can work on and I want to work on. That's the magical moment. I hope that kind of makes sense. I hope that answers the question anyway.
Yeah, no, you did. It was perfect. Now, we've talked about Hannah and your daughter inspiring you, but who else has been there holding you and supporting you on this amazing journey?
Well, I mean, there's quite a list. Again, going back to the book selling, my first boss in that particular role, who was an incredibly inspirational woman, who basically gave me the space to fail. And she was that sort of, share her name, Lorna. I don't know if she's on LinkedIn. Lorna Hunt, absolutely fantastic sort of mentor, because she would just let me try things. Again, coming back to that sort of designer, marketer, bravery, what are we going to do to excite people today? It's kind of, let's try this, let's see if it works. And she was very keen to let me fail, like I say, in a very sort of safe way. So that was, she was phenomenal. And again, like I said, I consider myself very lucky. My parents, essentially, not everyone has, an amazing relationship with their mum and dad. I'm very lucky that both of them are still here. They live very close. And again, there's lots of things I've done in my life which I'm not particularly proud of, but they've always been there to sort of say, never mind, come on, what's next? And interestingly, because I was thinking about this morning, because my dad's story, he was an entrepreneur, built up this incredibly successful business in his own way, on his own terms. And he did it in a very kind of personable, human way. He was very much liked, respected, highly regarded in his industry. He possibly was too emotional in his business, in so much as it ultimately failed because one of his biggest clients, who was also a friend, essentially went down and took dad with him. And my mum, who's a bit more pragmatic, is like, you should have drawn the line sort of somewhere and not got that close. But another company swooped in and said, we love what you do, we love you, we are going to pick this up, we're going to pick you up because we believe in you, and we're going to keep moving forward. And the way that my dad handled that, we're talking sort of 30 years ago, I think now, just remains this incredible inspiration. And again, thinking about when I was like at my lowest, and I was sort of chatting to him, and he was like, "Yeah, I was there. I've done that." And I'm like, I had no idea, because he was just so solid, even though under the water it was kind of less solid. But yeah, they've, both of them are remarkable. But yeah, it's funny how much I have shared my sort of journey in the same way that sort of what my dad went through. So yeah, those two definitely.
Brilliant, thank you. Now the two of the tables turn. I don't know what's coming. You get to ask a question of me, so I get to worry a little bit, because I do every week. I go, oh, I have to. I do get a little scared. I do get a little fear coming and going. Oh, where are we going to go this week? So fire something at me and see if I can. If I can be in the hot seat.
Okay. Well, obviously, I've listened to the show a few times, and I know that one of your big values is helping. You love to kind of help and put others out there and promote them. Digging into, again, sort of the questions that I would normally ask someone I'm working with, there's kind of 6. Well, there's 2, but I repeat the second one 5 times. What is it you really want, and why is that so important to you that you're prepared to do the brave thing? So in terms of the why's why, Kirsty, what is it about this show that's so important to you? Well, what is it about the show you want? And why is that important to you?
It's really interesting because I set this up on a whim. So I'm very much like the back of a fag packet sometimes. Most of the time I'm really organised, but then I will pick up the fag. Sounds awful, doesn't it? Back of a fag packet, piece of paper, throw it together, and I deliver within, I like the pressure. I think that's one of the things I've learned about myself, is I like to be able to turn something around in less than 48 hours if I can. I think that goes back to being an actor, because you get a job, and I think I miss that a little bit. So you'd get a job. Like I prepare for the why's why every week, but at the same time, I do it as improvisation deliberately. So I think some of it feeds the artistic, creative energy that I've had, because I went to drama school. I was there from 11. I was a professional actress at 8 years old. So I think some of it is about feeding that need, because if I don't use that creative need, I know I'm a nightmare to live with. So I think partly there's that. And of course, I've just launched a new podcast, so I must love going on camera, although I don't even notice or watch them back. So I listen to them. The other thing is, it's a really good platform for new businesses. It's a really good platform for people for personal branding. And when I launched it, I thought we'd do 10, 12 episodes. We've done 89. I've changed the format recently because my life's got busier, and I realized the pressure of every week was actually becoming a bit of a limitation, and that was causing some issues back into the family, because I couldn't do the school run every single Friday. So I've changed it to bi-weekly, which means that I can be actually a bit more selective in a way with the guests that I bring on, because we've got 89 episodes. And when I started, I was like, oh yeah, everyone, woohoo, let's just go for it. But now I can really choose, and it's people that I really feel that either they've been clients and they're not confident on camera and I can build them up. They've got an important story to share. And I think it's really important that the story, because everyone thinks, and it's back to that social media thing, everyone thinks life is perfect. But perfection is a moving target, and perfection doesn't exist. And it's really key to me that this perfectionist gene, now I had it all the way through, and I drove myself to the point of breaking, trying to be perfect, trying to fit in, trying to be socially acceptable. I'm now in my 50s, and I don't give a flying something about being accepted or liked. I used to care a lot about it. And so I think that's also part of it, is I really want people to know that what you see on socials is not real. And this reality is that every single business owner, every single human being I have ever met has had their ups, their downs, and we all have this kind of up, down, up, down, up, down life. Life is full of hairpin bends, ups, downs, successes, failures. And if somebody doesn't honestly share it, well, then we're just still going to be living in this world of social bubble of perfection. And that's just going to drive me insane. I think I answered your question.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, you did, and I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. Again, this whole fake gloss and sheen that you get over the kind of socials and things. Again,
Well, it goes
it's
further,
driving the
doesn't it?
fears. It's driving the fears. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just there, is it? Let's look at magazines. Let's look at the marketing. I mean, I'm not going to go on a rant here, but let's look at men's health magazines. Let's look at women's magazines, and let's look at the stuff that they put out there. Look at the celebrities who are desperately trying to chase their youth and are putting in fillers and God knows what and ruining their faces. Let's be really brutal. I'm 53. There's nothing in this face. And I like it because it moves. But this is what I mean. So me coming on live every week, yes, I put my makeup on. This is why I've also brought in my natural hair. Well, that's not the color, but the style. All of those things are me trying to just bring a voice that says it's okay to be just you, I guess. That means I did go on a rant, didn't I? Oh,
That's good. No, it's good. Yeah, like I say, I mean, 100% sort of on your side with that again, because just being you, no one will ever be as good at being you as you. So although there's no such thing as perfect, you are the very best version of you that there will ever be. That's what should be celebrated. That again, coming back to the fears, it's reminding you how bloody good you are and how you deserve to be celebrated. So again, that's why I've listened to the show. That's what I love about it, because I think that's what you do really well. You celebrate and allow people to celebrate themselves.
I really appreciate that, because for 15 years of my life, I lived in fear. And well, it wasn't 15, it was more like 13. But for 13 years of my life, I lived in abject fear. And for that reason, the Wise Why is the platform, because I don't want anyone to be there. And that's why I said I'd love to have you on, because facing your fears is, in my mind, it's the bravest thing you can ever do. And I know you can help people.
Bless you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, again, thank you for inviting me on today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
No problem. Thank you so much for joining me.